Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
Ron, what's with the music?
Well, this 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by The Western.
Well, I'm your Huckleberry.
Impressive. A Doc Holliday quote.
Get on your horse, Ron. We got cattle to drive.
That might be going a bit too far.
Far to the south, hidden in the mysterious low country of Cuba, a sugar plantation house, dimly lighted in the somber dusk. In the parlor of the house sits a small, thin woman.
Lester Lockwood was my brother, Inspector. His wife, Nydia, drove him to throw himself off the riverbank.
Suppose you tell me the whole story.
Well, 2 years ago, my brother and his wife left their professorships in the English department at Lynbrook College and came here to live and write. As time went by, Nydia became fascinated by the native drums. One night, she wandered alone in the jungle.
And never came back. Yes, I remember.
And then the first of those mysterious notes appeared, written in blood on dried bark. I have been chosen, it said, for one of the living dead. Come to me, Lester, and share my eternity. It was signed, Nydia. Lester watched for her, certain somehow she'd come for him. And last night, we were standing on the jungle path.
Judith, the drums. They're getting louder. She will come, I know she will.
Oh, Lester, give up this plantation. It's evil.
It's too late. She's here. Listen. Do you hear that?
What?
A movement. Yonder, beyond the trees. Look.
Oh, Lester, it is Nydia.
It's true. Judith, my wife's one of the living dead.
Lester, come back!
I've got to find her and save her from this voodoo magic.
He ran off in the darkness, and I went quickly back to the house to wait. And at last, Lester came back.
I couldn't find her. I looked everywhere.
Then you've got to come away from this place tonight.
Judith, look, here on the window ledge.
Oh, another of those terrible notes. What does it say?
You are a human. You cannot know the glory of eternal life. Come to the jungle, to the drums, and share my living death. Keep this between you and I.
Oh, she's trying to destroy you. Trying to, Lester.
I'm going to her, Judith.
No.
Lydia's waiting for me to come.
Lester, come back. Come back.
And this is the note your brother found last night on the window ledge, Miss Lockwood. Eh?
Yes. Others, I suppose he destroyed them.
I see. And you say your brother's wife was formerly an English instructor?
At Lynbrook. She met Lester there.
Your story, Miss Lockwood, is interesting, and I think I know the truth. But the chief at headquarters would rather hear it from you, so come along.
What was the clue that led Inspector James to arrest Judith Lockwood? In a moment, he'll tell us, but first...
Ron, that had nothing to do with westerns.
I have to agree. Do you know the difference between cowboys and zombies?
I do.
Then why a story from Cuba?
I never said the FFM was a Western.
It was implied.
Was it, though?
Ron, you give podcasting a bad name.
And you guys missed the point. No one would actually ever sponsor these stories.
Then why do it?
Now that is the question.
And And now, here's Inspector James.
Under questioning, Judith Lockwood broke down and confessed to the murder of her brother and his wife. She was a pretty mixed-up woman, but she had imagination. I knew Judith had written the note herself because no instructor of the English language is going to make 2 grammatical errors in 4 short sentences. You don't say human for human being. And nothing is ever between you and I. So, if you didn't know, let's keep it between you and me.
I am reminded of something Robert Frost said.
And what might that be?
You can be a little ungrammatical if you're from the right part of the country.
That is really dumb.
Are you calling Robert dumb?
Absolutely not. I am calling you an idiot.
Well, okay then.
Is that you say?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. To make that whole past 5 minutes make some sense, we do have a theme today. It is the Western genre. As a kid, I grew up with Westerns everywhere. The movies, television, books, and a sister that loved horses. In the 90s and early 2000s, it was all about the crime drama, so they went away for a bit. But today, they're back in style, and I'm happy about that. Movies like Deadwood and the TV series Billy the Kid are great, and I can't wait to see Kevin Costner's new one, Horizon, An American Saga, Chapter 1. From all reports, it looks to right the wrongs of other historical dramas of the period. We'll see about that. I still remember him saying something similar about Postmaster and Waterworld. And we all know how that turned out. On the podcast today, we'll start off with a review of the Louis L'Amour novel, The High Graders. I never heard or seen this one before, and I was impressed by the story and storyteller. Then, we have 2 listener stories today. One of them takes place at the famous Jesse James farm, where the outlaw met his end at the hands of his friend, Bob Ford. Our featured story comes from the OTR series, Death Valley Days. A prospector meets up with a mule that has no name. According to the taglines for this series, all of the tales that played on the show were based on real events. How about that? So, it's time to get to all of that, and please, enjoy the show. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. This time we're going to talk about the Old West. The Western is a genre of fiction typically set in the American frontier between the California Gold Rush of 1849 and the closing of the frontier in 1890. The frontier is depicted as a sparsely populated, hostile region patrolled by cowboys, outlaws, sheriffs, and of course, the gunslinger. Originated in Vaquero heritage, it moved the Western lifestyle into pulp culture, created country music, and introduced Western wear. The genre has been a come-and-go type thing, and right now it's making a comeback. But when did it become a thing? Well, historians agree that it all started with the Wild West shows at the turn of the century. Shows like Buffalo Bill Cody's used the term Western to describe their content. The first usage of it appears to have originated in the July 1912 article in the Motion Picture Magazine. Now, this is interesting. The first films that belong to the Western genre are a series of short silents made in 1894 by Edison Studios. How about that? These featured veterans of the Wild West shows exhibiting skills acquired by living in the Old West, and they included Annie Oakley and members of the Sioux Nation. This brings us to our audiobook. One of the greatest authors to tackle the Western was Louis L'Amour, although he called his stuff frontier stories. His most widely known works include The Last of the Breed, Hondo, Shalako, and my favorite, the Sackett series. Our audiobook today is titled The High Graders, a novel by Louis L'Amour and narrated by Jason Culp. Eli Patterson had died in a gunfight, but Mike Shevlin knew it couldn't be true. The man who had been like a father to him had also been a Quaker. But when Shevlin rides back to Rafter Crossing to uncover the truth, he finds that the quiet ranching community has become a booming mining town. Here is a clip from The High Graders.
Mike Shevlin squatted on his heels in the driving rain and struck a match under the shelter of his slicker. The match flared, and he leaned forward, cupping the flame in his hand against the face of the gravestone. Eli Patterson, 1811 to 1876. There was no mistake then. But how in the name of truth could a peace-loving man like old Eli wind up in a grave on Boot Hill? Eli Patterson had been a Quaker, a man of deep conviction who never touched a gun for his own use and did not approve of those who did. Yet he was dead, shot to death, and buried here among the victims of gun and knife, and if rumor could be credited, he had himself died gun in hand. The flame flickered out, and the dropped match hissed against the sodden earth. Anybody but him, Shevlin said aloud. Anybody but old Eli. The splash of a footstep in a pool of water warned him an instant before the voice spoke. "Kind of wet up here, isn't it?" Mike Shevlin straightened slowly to his feet, glad his slicker was unbuttoned and his gun ready to hand. Enemies he would surely find at Rafter Crossing, but he could expect no friends. He took his time in facing around, careful that his movements be not misunderstood. Through the pouring rain and the darkness, he could see the bulk of a square, powerfully built man. Lightning flared, throwing the grave crosses into sharp relief, lighting the water-soaked earth, and making an occasional gleam on stone. But of the white face before him, he could make out no detail. The other man would see even less of Shevlin, because of the upturned collar of his slicker and the pulled-down brim of his black hat. "You make a practice of following people?" Mike Shevlin asked. "It's a wet night to be on Boot Hill." "I've buried men here on wetter nights. If need be, I can bury more." "Ah, I was right then. You're no stranger." There was satisfaction in the man's voice. Lightning glinted off the badge on his chest. Mike Shevlin put a rein to his tongue. This was no bumbling old Sheriff McCown, nor anybody he remembered from the Rafter Crossing he had known. Wanting no trouble, he simply said, "I've been here before, if that's what you mean." The man with the badge shifted his feet slightly. "Are you Ray Hollister?" "If you don't know Ray Hollister," Shevlin replied, "you haven't been around long." 2 years. He left before I came." Shevlin had an uneasy feeling that had he said he was Ray Hollister, the sheriff would have killed him. Wind and rain lashed the grave-covered knoll, whipping the branches of the trees. Off to the right were the lights of the town, many more lights than he remembered. Beyond the town was the gallows frame and the huddled buildings of a mine, lighted for a night shift. "Too wet to talk here," Shevlin said. "What's on your mind?" "You were looking at Patterson's grave. He was killed in a gun battle 2 years ago." Anger flared up in Mike Shevlin. "Whoever told you that," he said roughly, "lied." "Then the coroner lied, Mason lied, and Gib Gentry lied." "Who killed him?" "Gentry, in self-defense. Mason was a witness." Patterson still had a gun in his hand when others came up. Suddenly, Shevlin knew he was not likely to be offered a drink nor a hot meal on this night. Rain slanted across the windows down there in town, windows behind which it would be dry and warm, but where he might be identified before he found out what he had come so far to learn.
Newfound wealth has not made Rafter a peaceful place. The smell of fear and greed is thick in the air. As Mike Shevlin tries to unravel the mystery of Patterson's death, he's led deeper and deeper into a conspiracy that controls not only the fate of Rafter Crossing, but the heart of a beautiful but tormented young woman. And of course, Shevlin's own destiny. Well, I don't have to tell you that the writing in this one is fantastic. Louis L'Amour was the best, and this is just another great story as told by a master. The narration is top-notch. Jason Culp did a number of L'Amour's novels and brings an authentic voice to the characters and plot. Speaking of the plot, I'll admit it's standard fare. Man comes to town for revenge and meets a girl. Turmoil ensues and justice is served. But it is good to point out that getting to all of that is great fun and well worth the listen. I truly enjoyed this one, and I do highly recommend it. If a Louis L'Amour Western appeals to you, head to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can have one for free. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering you a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out the service. You can stream or download thousands of included audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals in the Plus catalog. There is so much to do, you will never run out of material. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. You'll be glad you did. Thank you, Audible. And now, let's get to your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Our first story comes from Banner Hope. Yes, that's his real name. He says that his friends call him Harry. I had to ask him why. He replied that his middle name is Horatio. Again, I shook my head and sent off another email. He wrote back and said that it happened when he was a kid. A teacher thought his name was Harry and started calling him that. It stuck. He also mentioned that the kid next to him, his name was Harry James, like the trumpet player. So, for the rest of the year, Banner was Harry and Harry was James. The class thought it was too funny, and no one ever corrected her. But this has nothing to do with the story. Banner, aka Harry, has titled his story, A Day at Jesse James' Family Farm. Perhaps one of the most legendary outlaws of all time was the notorious Jesse James. His family farm in Kearney, Missouri, is believed to be a hotspot of paranormal activity. It is a place where James met his untimely death, where his younger brother Archie was killed by Pinkerton detectives, and where James was initially buried so that his mother, Zerelda, could protect his body. For over 100 years, it's believed that spirits reside all over the property. It makes sense when you consider that the farm dates back to the Civil War. Visitors have claimed to witness flickering lights and hear the sound of horses' hooves in the dirt. Also, gunshots and cries in the night are also witnessed. Jesse James was the son of a Baptist minister and was born at the family home in 1847. He and his older brother Frank fought with the guerrillas during the Civil War. The farm features the world's largest display of family artifacts and Jesse's original gravesite. $9 tours of the property are conducted every day with limited hours on Sundays. Now, let's hear Banner's story. Hello, Ron. I've wanted to share my crazy story with you for a long time, but kept coming up with excuses. Finally, I decided now was the time, and here we go. I'm a huge fan of anything Western. I visit famous locations and museums every summer. Because of your show and Sylvia's stories, a couple years ago I started doing ghost tours. The very first one I took was at the Jesse James family farm. I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't prepared for what happened. The tour itself was really fun. The guide took us all over the property, telling us all kinds of ghost stories. One about a battle that took place nearby. They say that you can still hear the horses. And the tour ended at Jesse's gravesite, where he's said to roam looking for Bob Ford, the guy who killed him. After we finished, they let us do a free roam. I was surprised to see so many people break out ghost hunting gear and get to work looking for evidence. I wasn't sure what to do, so I kind of just followed a group that seemed to know what they were doing. After a while, I got bored and walked to the back of the house. There is a wooded, fenced-off area there. I went to the center and started asking Jesse questions. I felt silly, but I decided that if I didn't at least try, I would never know. I asked a lot of questions about things I knew about his death. I didn't get any responses. But when I asked the question, "Were you mad that Bob Ford killed you in front of your family?" Suddenly, I felt a cold breeze. It had been hot all day, and even though it was night, it still was about 80. I would say that it dropped into the low 60s. A chill went through me, and I was scared. Also, I definitely didn't feel alone. In the end, I decided that there was nothing to fear, so I pressed on and said, "I know you're here. Did you know that on June 8, 1892, Edward O'Kelly killed Bob Ford in a saloon with a shotgun?" It was then I saw flashing lights all around me, and it started to get warmer. At first, I thought it was some bugs, but they weren't swarming. It was like the transporter beam in the original Star Trek show. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. I wanted to run, but I hung on. I asked one more question. "Were you happy that your son became a successful lawyer?" The lights faded, and I felt calm. I went back to the group. They were all milling about, asking questions and pointing meters. One guy had this box that was making static noises. I later found out that it was called a ghost box. I tried to tell everyone about my experience, but no one really heard what I said. So I grabbed my backpack and left. Was that Jesse James that I encountered? I surely don't know. I do know this. There is no logical explanation for what I experienced. In fact, the only one I can come up with that makes any sense is that I'm lying. And I assure you that I'm not. Banner Hope, Knoxville, Tennessee. Well, I have to say that all the things you mentioned have been backed up by other folks' experiences there. Unsurprisingly, one of America's most famous outlaws is the subject of many legends that even go beyond his exploits as a living, breathing criminal. Jesse James Farm is known as the location of his supposed ghost. Ethereal footsteps and horse hooves can be heard where none are present. Shadows move without tripping security alarms, and even sounds of a sudden gunshot can be heard inside the property. In fact, the James family itself have claimed that their home was haunted well before the notorious outlaw grew up and started his crime spree. There are even reports of seeing apparitions of Civil War soldiers on the premises. So, I have no reason to doubt you. Banner, I want to thank you for sharing your story. This next story was sent in by Sam Larson from San Diego. We have a lot of stories about poltergeist activity. I think it might be the most common form of haunting there is. The thing about it is that it starts up and then just stops. Hard to track down. Here is Sam's story that he has titled, Bruce, Is That You? We were 3 friends searching for a house in the downtown area. After a couple days, we finally found one. We were desperate, so we booked the house and moved in the very next day. It was a split-level house with 3 rooms on 3 different floors. Things went smoothly at first, but gradually we all started feeling things. We never talked about it because we were all preparing for midterm exams. I started getting disturbed while sleeping. I felt like someone was staring at me through my door. I could only get to sleep around 4 or 5 a.m. when the sunlight hit the window. After a while, I talked with John about it. He told me the same weird things was happening to him. Then we talked to Bruce, but he hadn't experienced anything. Then we started hearing haunting sounds. The sound of kitchen utensils dropping, running tap water, walking on the stairs, and the closing and opening of windows. Up to this point, we were ignoring it and focusing on our exams. One evening, John and I were studying together on the ground floor, and Bruce was studying in his room on the second floor. After some time, he came downstairs and entered the kitchen. We were aware that he had come down and knew that he was there, but he wasn't coming out. So I asked, "Hey, what are you doing in the kitchen?" No reply. So I asked John, "Didn't Bruce come down and go to the kitchen?" "Yeah, he opened the kitchen door," he replied. It was strange, so I went to see what he was doing. I went to the kitchen, and I was shocked to find the kitchen door closed, and there was no one there. I ran upstairs and found him at his study table taking an online test. I asked him, "Did you just go downstairs?" He had a blank look and said that he had not been downstairs. We all just sat together for a while and said, "Well, heck." A few weeks went by and Bruce went to his folks' home for a visit. John and I were studying again. John asked me if I knew when Bruce would be back. A voice came from his room and said, "Why wait? I'm coming downstairs." We just looked at each other, eyes wide open, and ran upstairs. But of course, no one was there. We decided to start researching the place. John had an auntie in the neighborhood. We asked her about the house, and she said that around 1998 there was a murder there. The husband murdered his wife and left the body. The body was found after a week by the owner. I guess someone had reported a bad smell. Since then, the owner has had a rough time renting the place. After the school year ended, we got out of there and found a new home that summer. A lot of strange stuff happened that I won't write about here. I am attaching a photo from our Ring doorbell camera. We had a small gym outside in the yard. The photo was captured on the last night before we packed everything up. There is nothing that could have been reflected back, nor any access except from inside the house. What did we capture? I have no idea. Sam Larson, San Diego, California. Well, that is an interesting story. I'll have a link to Sam's photo in the show notes. But what you're going to see is a photo of the equipment and this bright light in the middle of it with absolutely no way to explain how it got there. Thank you for sharing your story, Sam. Well, that's it for this time. If you have a story that you want to share, like Sam did, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com. Click on the story submission banner, leave your story, give it a title, and please tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story comes from a series that ran syndicated on radio from 1930 until 1945. It was created by Ruth Woodman and is called Death Valley Days. Although it ran primarily on radio, it also aired as a television show from 1952 through 1975. The tales were told by the Old Ranger, who recounted true stories of the American West, mostly in the Death Valley area. Some of the hosts that played the Old Ranger were Ronald Reagan, Robert Taylor, John Payne, Dale Robertson, and believe it or not, Merle Haggard. During his time as host, Reagan also frequently appeared in the television program as a performer. Our story today is titled The Burro with No Name. I left this one intact so you could hear the whole concept of the show, commercials and all. I think you're going to be surprised. It is such a unique format that I found it, well, quite delightful. You tell me what you think. This one first aired on radio on June 17th, 1938.
As the old morning bugle call of the covered wagon trains dies away among the echoes, another true story of Death Valley Days is brought to you by the Pacific Coast Borax Company, who give you the miracle of borax in 3 convenient forms: 20 Mule Team Borax for household use, 20 Mule Team Borax soap chips for washing clothes and dishes, and the new Boraxo for toilet use. Before you become absorbed in the Old Ranger's story for tonight, we would like to take just a moment of your time to tell you something about Boraxo. Boraxo was created in response to the insistent demands from women for a product that would cleanse the skin as safely as 20 Mule Team Borax cleanses painted woodwork or bathroom porcelain or your fine china and glassware. Well, the letters we receive every day praising Boraxo tell us that we have succeeded in meeting this demand. For, say our new customers who have discovered Boraxo, your Boraxo does just what we wanted. It cleanses dirty hands and the children's knees and elbows like magic. It works so fast that the children no longer have any excuse to be late for meals. They can wash up in a jiffy with Boraxo. And best of all, I know that they will come to the table not only really clean, but with smooth, soft skin. Your Boraxo cleanses the skin as quickly as your 20 Mule Team Borax cleans our houses. And that is saying something. And like 20 Mule Team Borax, it cleanses without doing any damage. Thank you for your wonderful new product, Boraxo. And thank you, too, for Death Valley Days, which all of us love. And now, here's the Old Ranger.
Good evening, folks. Good evening, and a hearty welcome to you all.
And now, Old Ranger, what's the story for tonight?
Well, it's a story I hardly expect you to believe, but it's the absolute truth just the same.
Why, Old Ranger, you know I believe every word you utter on the air.
Say, George, you don't like the way you say on the air. However, I'll let it pass this time, and now you just pin back your ears and hark to the story of the burro that had no name.
Well, wouldn't it be a good idea before you start, Old Ranger, to explain exactly what a burro is? There may be some of our listeners who don't know.
Well, don't know what a burro is?
Well, not by that name, anyway.
Sure they do. Why, the word burro is as common as as horse.
Well, where you come from, maybe.
Everywhere.
It's not in the encyclopedia.
How do you know?
Because I looked. When you told us last week about this Burro story, I thought I'd, study up a bit on burros.
Oh, steal a march on the audience, eh? So you went to the encyclopedia?
Yes, and I took down the volume labeled Bray, B-R-A-I, to cast.
Bray? Well, that was a good thing to look under.
Just the same, the word burro was nowhere to be found.
Maybe you don't know how to spell it.
B-U-R-R-O.
That's right. And you're sure it wasn't there?
Absolutely. From Elihu Burritt, they jumped right to John Burroughs.
Well.
So then I turned to donkey, and all it said there was see ass.
And all it said there, I suppose, was see Balaam. Well, since you couldn't find the word burro in your dictionary, George, I'll enlighten you. A burro is the same as a donkey, or a jackass. In the desert, we generally call them jacks for short. They stand about 4 foot high. Their coats is furry. Their ears is long. Their tails is sort of like a piece of rope frayed at the end. Their hoofs is small and sharp, but their teeth is big and sharp. And their voices is something fearful. There you are. And now since you got a mental picture of the animal, well, let's get going on the yarn. The scene opens in the mining camp of Rhyolite. It's the year 1905. Walter Scott Smith, known as Smitty, and his partner, Ole Martin, are negotiating with a feller in Rhyolite for a string of burros with which to start out into the hills.
2 for packs and 1 for water.
Yeah.
Now, if you can just fix us up with a couple of good riding burros.
I can give you 2 of the finest riding burros in Nevada. Blackjack here and Samson.
How much?
50 apiece.
50? We'll give you 30.
Ah, you go to blazes. Why, them pack animals bring 35.
Holy smoke. Well, that's highway robbery.
Try and buy 'em somewhere else, then.
$35 for a pack burro?
And 50 for a saddle burro. These 2 critters is worth it, too. I've rode 'em both myself, and I know. Why, Blackjack brung me once all the way from Gold Circle to Battle Mountain. A 60-mile trip in 10 hours. And Samson...
We'll give you 40 apiece for 'em.
50 or nothing.
I never paid as much as $50 for a burro in my life.
Well, I'll tell you what I can do. I can give you a cheaper pack burro in place of one of them you picked out.
Yeah? Which one?
That one over yonder, sniffing at the pile of tin cans. Now, I could give you him...
The white burro?
Yeah. I'll let you have him for, $20.
I wouldn't take him as a gift.
15.
You think I'd be fool enough to go prospecting with a white burro?
Hey, what's the matter with a white burro?
Well, they're unlucky, that's what. Unluckiest thing there is.
So you don't really believe that, do you?
We could swing $15. You ain't suggesting that we buy that white jack.
Well...
Pay $15 for a Jonah, a Jinx, a Hoodoo? Only you're crazy. You must have been out walking in the sun without your hat on.
He ain't really white, Smitty. He's kind of gray.
He's as white as you or me.
Well, we ain't exactly lilies.
I'll make you a price of $12 for him. How's that?
You shut up.
I'm talking to your partner.
If he buys that white burro off you, he's no longer my partner.
Oh, Smitty.
I mean it, Ole. You and me's been prospecting together since Panamint days. We've slept under the same blanket, drunk out of the same canteen, gone 50-50 on every strike we've made. I think a heap of you. But if you pay as much as 2 bits for that ill wind yonder, our trails is going to part. So help me.
I guess we'll just take 4 burros, mister.
It was on the second night out. Ole and Smitty were finished with their supper, and Ole went over to feed the leavings to the burros.
All right, I'm coming. One at a time now. What? Why, hello.
What's the matter?
Am I counting noses right? 1, 2, 3.
One of our jacks missing?
No, seems we've acquired an extra one.
Got 5 now, huh?
Yeah.
Well, if those fool greenhorns don't know enough to tie their critters up, they deserve to lose them. Let me have a look. So,
huh?
It's the white burro.
Well, it's a white burro.
It's the same white burr that sharper in Rhyolite tried to palm off on us.
Oh, now, that ain't likely, Smitty.
I recognize him.
In the dark like
What's
this?
more, he recognizes us. Look at that glint in his eye.
Oh, I don't see no glint.
He's a grinning at us, gloating over us. The blasted little devil. You're to blame for this, Ole. It's all your fault.
My fault?
It's on account of you he's followed us here, and it's up to you now to get rid of him.
Well, how?
How? You ask me how?
Well...
We'll fire rocks at him, cuss him, kick him.
I wouldn't want to do that.
All right, then, I will.
No, you leave him to me. I'll make it plain to him that he ain't welcome around here.
Well, see that you do. Pronto. I'll be washing up the supper thing.
All right. Oh, here, you critters. Here's your grub. Now, don't you be so greedy, Samson. Don't you know there's others to share with?
You through with that tail yet, Ole?
Yep.
Then I'll take it and wash it along with the frying pan and... Ole Martin.
What's the matter?
You fed that burro.
Which burro?
The white burro.
Ah, now, Smitty.
You needn't deny it. Look at him licking his lips.
Well, that's just...
Just some bacon grease he's trying to get off his whiskers.
You're imagining things, Smitty.
Is that piece of flapjack sticking to his nose my imagination?
Oh, well...
You fed that burro. And you just promised me you'd get rid of him.
I will, Smitty, honest.
Honest?
Right away.
It's too late. We'll never be rid of him now.
Well,
that evil little blighter will trail us wherever we go, bringing us nothing but bad luck.
Look, he's leaving now. What did I tell you?
Yeah.
He's walking right off into the desert. You see, he savvies.
He savvies that supper is over, but he'll be back. You just wait and see.
The next morning, when Ole opened his eyes, he looked around fearfully. Then he breathed a sigh of relief. The white burro was nowheres in sight. Well, breakfast over, the partners packed up their outfit and moved on farther into the hills. That evening, they made a dry camp, and while Smitty unpacked and prepared supper, Ole went off with one of the pack burros to rustle a supply of firewood. It was almost dark when he returned.
I begun to think you was lost or had struck gold, maybe.
No, just that wood was scarce. This critter wanted to lay down all the time. Hey, what smells so good?
I got a treat for us tonight.
What is it?
Fresh bread.
No.
Uh-huh.
Why, you old son of a gun.
Too low.
Where are they?
In the Dutch oven, keeping warm.
Fresh bread.
Yes, sir. Hey, when it's my turn to do the cooking, I produce real grub.
Well, if you're casting aspersions on my meals, hey, what else we gonna have?
Mulligan, coffee, Dawson plums.
With a loaf of bread apiece? Well, that ought to do it.
Hey, we're saving one of them loaves for tomorrow.
Ah, don't be stingy.
You call a half a loaf of bread stingy? Say, them big loaves.
Well, I could eat a whole batch without any help. I'm hungry as a wolf.
Well, everything's ready as soon as you are.
Well, then, let's eat.
All right. I'll be dishing up the mulligan.
And I'll get the bread out of the oven.
That oven was a good buy, Ole.
Yeah.
Wait till you see the crust of that bread. A nice, even, golden brown.
Where'd you say it was, Smitty?
What?
The bread.
Why, right where you're looking, in the oven.
No, it ain't.
Oh, sure it is.
I tell you it ain't. The oven's empty.
Say, what have you been drinking?
Well, if you don't believe me, come on and look for yourself.
Oh, you never could find nothing no way. What?
See?
Well, I'll be darned. Where'd you put them?
Me?
You sneaked them out and hid them. I know.
I did nothing of the kind.
Come on, tell me.
Why, I ain't so much as laid eyes on them loaves of bread, Smitty, I swear it.
Well, somebody's took them. They was in this oven here not 5 minutes ago.
You sure?
Of course I'm sure. I come over and took a look at them to see if they was done, just before you come in.
You don't suppose one of the burros could have stole them, do you, while your back was turned?
Oh, how could a burro lift up the lid of a Dutch oven and carry off 2 loaves of bread?
You'd have to be educated.
Blamedest thing I ever knowed. 2 loaves of bread disappearing into thin air.
Maybe you didn't bake them at all. Maybe you just greened it.
You smelled them, didn't you?
Well, that's right, I did.
Ole.
Yeah?
Ole. Look. Over yonder. Where I'm pointing. What's that sticking out from behind that big boulder?
Why, it looks like a couple of long cactus leaves.
It's a pair of ears.
Maybe.
White ears. Only it's...
Now, don't jump at conclusions, Smitty. Let's go see.
I told you this would happen. I knowed he'd turn up again. There, and you see, I was right.
Sure enough, it's old Whitey.
Don't!
What's the matter?
Don't you dare give him a name.
Why not?
Don't you know that once you name an animal, he's yours?
Who says so?
Why, it stands to reason.
You mean?
So long as he's got no name, he's a stray, a stranger, a rank outsider. But just you give him a name, any kind of a name, and he belongs to you.
I see.
What are you laughing at?
For a stranger, this fella has certainly made himself right at home. Look.
My bread.
What's left of it.
My beautiful, fresh, hot, crusty bread. Oh, you varmint, you. You thieving little son of a rustler. You ferocious fuzztail.
Careful, Smitty. Don't call him names.
Calling him names ain't the same as giving him names. I can call him all the names in the dictionary if I feel like it. Yes, and I do. Yeah. Grin. Grin, you lop-eared, sawed-off limb of Satan. You white curse. You evil-eyed, aspinurious imp of darkness. You... Well, I reckon I'll hit the hay.
Well, you can turn in if you want to. I'm going to set up a while longer.
What for?
Oh, I just ain't sleepy, that's all. I'll smoke another pipeful and...
And wait up for him, huh?
Wait for who?
You can't fool me, Ole. You're worrying about that Burro.
Do you suppose something has happened to him, Smitty?
Well, let's hope so. Then maybe our luck will change.
Well, I can't see as we've had any bad luck on this trip.
No, nor any good luck, neither. We ain't smelled a smell of ore. Ole, look.
Where?
Coming toward us. Out of the night.
What?
It's him.
The prodigal?
Hush, hush, will you? If he hears you...
Well, that ain't him. Why, if it was him, he'd be braying by now. That Burro ain't making a sound.
It's his ghost, then. Come to haunt us. It's the spitting image.
You're right, Smitty, it is.
His ghost?
No, himself.
What's he walking so queer for?
Why, he's sick or hurt or something. What is it, old boy? What's happened? Come over here by the fire where I can see you.
His eyes is closed tight.
And his head's all swelled up.
Say, what in tarnation?
Looks queer around the jaw, too. Open your mouth, fella, and let's have a look. Open your mouth.
Won't, huh?
He can't. His teeth is clenched.
What is it, lockjaw?
Rattlesnake bite.
Huh?
Look, here on the nose. You can see where the fangs went in.
Yes, sir. He's done for, then.
We may be able to save him.
Save him?
We'll do our best anyhow.
Say, are you crazy?
Where's that permanganate of potassium?
Ole!
Oh, here it is.
What are you going to do?
Rub it in the wound, of course.
Ole, you...
Stand still, old fella. I won't hurt you. Now, this is going to do you good.
Ole, have you went clean out of your senses? This critter's a jinx. A hoodoo.
We can't just stand by and watch him die.
Well, why not? We don't want him. Nobody wants him.
That makes no difference. He's a poor, dumb animal, and he's in misery.
Then put him out of it.
Well, just what I'm trying to do.
I mean, shoot him, you fool.
No.
All right.
You put that gun down.
You quit working on him, then.
I can't, Smitty. Don't you see I can't?
Why can't you?
He come to us for help. He trusts us.
Trusts us? A white Burro.
Well, 'tain't his fault he was born white.
Only you...
Look. His eyes is opening. The potassium permanganate is beginning to work.
Oh.
His jaw's loosening. Now, if I can just get some whiskey down him...
Hey, that's my whiskey.
It's our whiskey. Here, boy.
Ole, I've stood for a lot. But if you pour so much as one drop of that liquor down that white varmint's throat, we bust up, you and me.
Tip your head back. That's it. Now let me stick the bottle in between your teeth. So.
Ole, I'm warning you.
A little more. There. Now we're through.
Yeah, we're through.
Smitty.
You can take your pick of the burros, Ole, and your share of the grub and things.
You're not going on?
No. I'm going back to Rhyolite.
And now, 10 days later, in a brilliantly lighted saloon in Rhyolite, we find Smitty doing his best to forget about Ole and the white Burro.
second childhood, that's all you can say for him.
Yeah, have another.
I don't mind if I do. Yes, sir. Ole needs a nurse or a keeper or something. What's the matter?
Oh, can you beat that? A Burro walking straight in through the swinging doors. He's looking for a drink. See, he's heading straight for the bar.
Jumping Jehoshaphat! It's the white Burro.
What?
The Burro I was just telling you about. He's come back to hoodoo me again.
Ah, you're just saying things. Here, have another drink.
It's him, I tell you. Look at that scar on his nose. That's where the rattlesnake bit him.
Must mean Ole's back then.
Funny he come back so soon. Said he was going to stay out another 30 days.
Say, maybe located something.
Not with that white Burro along.
Look out, he's going to bite you.
Hey, get away from me, you unlucky varmint. What do you mean, grabbing hold of my coat? Let go of me, you hear me? Get away from me. Get out of here. Go on back to that old fool, Ole. Yeah, that done it.
He knows Ole's name all right, don't he?
Why wouldn't he? Well, why don't you go? What are you standing there for? What are you looking at me like that for? Take them eyes off of me, you hear me?
Say, he's trying to tell you something, Smitty.
Oh, I ain't interested.
Yeah, something's troubling him.
Yeah, his conscience, maybe.
You don't suppose something could have went wrong, do you, with Ole?
Be his own fault if it did.
I just wondered.
Well, what could have happened to him?
Oh, nothing most likely.
Ole's a old desert rat. He knows all the water holes in Nevada. Got plenty of grub.
Well, that being the case, how about another drink?
No, I've had enough, thanks.
This one's on the house.
I can't stop now. All right, you. Where is he? Is he here in Rhyolite? No? Then show me where.
Hey, Smitty, where you going?
Wherever this critter takes me.
You mean?
I'm going to look up Ole.
Well, it was just about sundown of the third day out that they found him, laying unconscious at the bottom of a narrow canyon.
Ole. Thank the Lord he's still alive. Ole.
Huh?
It's me, Smitty.
Smitty.
I come as fast as I could, Ole.
He brung you here, did he?
Straight as a die.
Good boy.
He turned up in Rhyolite.
Just like I told him to.
I knowed right off that something was wrong. What happened, Ole? Where you hurt?
My leg.
Broke?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
I was following some float up the mountain. It was getting dark. Like a fool, I didn't want to stop, and somehow or other I lost my footing and fell.
Clear down here?
Yeah, oh.
It's a wonder you wasn't killed outright.
Shows how tough I am.
Gosh.
I knowed I could never make it back to town, even if I had a burro to ride.
What happened to your burros?
They went off. I don't know where. All but this fellow. He stuck by me until I sent him away to get help. I figured I had enough water to last me till you could get here, if you'd come.
Why, Ole, of course I'd come.
I didn't know. I was sort of afraid.
You think I'd let you die out here alone?
Alone with my samples.
Huh?
They're around here, Summers.
Samples?
Of ore. I run across something mighty good, Smitty. Here's one of them. Take a good look at it.
Let me see. High grade.
I'll say.
Real picture rock.
I'll bet she says a trip to Europe per ton. If we wanted to go to Europe, which we don't.
We?
You and me.
Oh, but Ole,
We're still partners, ain't we, Smitty?
Ole, I don't deserve it after the way I treated you.
Heck, you just saved my life, didn't you?
It wasn't me. It was the white Burro.
A white Burro.
Ole.
Yeah?
Have you named him yet?
No.
Then Let's give him a name, now.
Smitty.
After all, he's earned it.
You know what it'll mean, don't you?
That he'll be ours for the rest of his life.
Yes.
All right. I'm willing.
You have been listening to another true story of Death Valley days, brought to you by the Pacific Coast Borax Company, producers of 20 Mule Team Borax for household use, 20 Mule Team Borax soap chips in the big blue and yellow Sunshine box for washing clothes and dishes, and the new Boraxo for toilet use. Your grocer can supply you with all of these products. All of them are inexpensive. All of them bring the miracle of borax into your home in convenient form. For example, 20 Mule Team Borax, in its neat red and white and black package, is the perfect cleanser for ice boxes. Why? Because 20 Mule Team Borax is a gleaming white powder that is clean as desert sunshine itself and absolutely odorless. Just what you want to cleanse food containers. Take a pan or bucket of warm water and dump some 20 Mule Team Borax in it. Wring out a clean cloth or sponge in it and wipe the entire inside of the icebox. Take the cube trays out and wash them separately, again in warm water in which 20 Mule Team Borax has been dissolved. When you are through, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that your icebox, where most of the family food is kept in summer, is absolutely sweet and clean, with no odor left from the cleansing to spoil the flavor of the food.
Okay, I loved the borax commercials. The idea of putting the stuff on your face for a smooth complexion had me laughing out loud. I believe that one of the uses of borax is as a pesticide. Truly saying the things that people got away with in the 1930s was amazing. I hope that you enjoyed that OTR broadcast. I know I did.
You worked too hard, you ate too much, the cheesecake made you greedy. Let your aching head and stomach hear this message from old Speedy. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Ah, those speedy Alka-Seltzer bubbles burst into action to relieve your upset stomach and aching head fast. Use only as directed. Oh, what a relief it is. What a relief.
That was episode number 646. And I really have to thank Banner Hope and Sam Larson for your stories today. They were amazing. Just a reminder that if you have a story and you want to share it, we want to hear it. Send it in today. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.